Fact is that ecologically we're not that intelligent. And unfortunately, no species has ever survived on this planet that hasn't lived in accordance with the three basic laws of ecology. The law of diversity, that the strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity of species within it. The law of interdependence, that those species are all interdependent with each other. And the law of finite resources, that there's a limit to growth, a limit to carrying capacity. And we're living now in an area of massive extinction of species because of that third law. We're literally stealing the carrying capacity of those species. And the greater our numbers, the greater our consumption, the more we steal from those other species, the more they go extinct. It's a major extinction event. There's only been 5 other major extinction events in recorded natural history. This one's actually got a name now. It's the 6th major extinction event. It's called the Homocene. In other words, we will lose more species of plants and animals between 1980 and 2045 than we have lost in the last 65 million years. That rate of extinction is unprecedented, and it usually takes the planet 15 to 20 million years to recover from a major extinction event. Unfortunately, one of the species that will be on that list, if we continue the way we're going, will be ourselves. So, you know, of course, we're always being accused of being doom and gloom Cassandras. I don't know if any of you heard this right-wing talk show guy in the U.S. called Rush Limbaugh, who is quite notorious, but he's always going on about environmentalists. They're nothing but doom and gloom Cassandras, always preaching, you know, pessimistic things. Well, here's the problem. Obviously, Rush has never read the Iliad. Because if he did, he would have realized that, yes, Cassandra was a doom and gloom prophetess, but the problem is that she was right. Everything she predicted came to pass. And what we are doing is making these predictions not to frighten people. We're not making these predictions for any other reason than to try and get people to think about what we're doing so we can turn it around and we can actually protect this planet and protect ourselves and future generations. The problem is that we are, as a species, have such an incredible ability to adapt to diminishment, and we have very poor memories and hardly any vision at all. We tend to think that we're, you know, pretty intelligent and pretty powerful, but when it really gets down to it, we don't know a hell of a lot. And I was raised in a fishing village in eastern Canada. I've seen the steady diminishment of life in our oceans, and it's going in a direction that is going to lead to a lot of very serious consequences. Almost every single commercial fishery in the world today is on the threshold of economic collapse. We are fishing everything out of the oceans because we're doing something to the oceans that we would never allow on land. We're basically taking everything. And there is no difference, for instance, between a bluefin tuna, a swordfish, and a shark, and a lion on the plains of the Serengeti. And when Africans go out and kill a mountain gorilla or a giraffe or a lion and they call it bushmeat, we get all indignant. But that's all a bluefin tuna is, aquatic bushmeat. It's a giant predator that we just take for granted that we can do whatever we want with it. There's simply not enough fish in the oceans to continue to feed the ever-expanding population and demands of humanity. And to make matters worse, 30 to 40% of all the fish that we take out of the ocean, we don't even eat. We feed it to livestock. So now the pig has become one of the largest aquatic predators on the planet. Chickens are eating more fish than puffins. The Danish fishing industry goes into the North Sea and pulls out, you know, thousands of tons of sand eels, these little silver fish that the puffins eat, grind them up into fish meal to feed the factory farm chickens in Denmark. Puffins are dying so factory farm chickens can eat sand eels. And this is how we're distorting the natural world. And we forget that fish are not just like, you know, renewable. A salmon, yeah, it takes 4 years to become sexually mature and dies. But an orange roughy takes 45 years to become sexually mature and can live to be 150 years old. Halibut can live to be 2 centuries old. When you have these long-living fishes like that, they cannot keep up with this demand. And when you consider that a shark only gives birth to 1 pup every, you know, at a time, it just cannot keep up with the insatiable demand that we insist upon taking everything that we can out of the oceans. We're adapting to diminishment, which now means that if you go, for instance, in Seattle, you go and get a crab cocktail. Everybody takes it for granted that it's crab, but it isn't. It's pollock. which is taken out of the ocean. It was always considered non-commercial because it has no taste. They take it out, they take the white meat, they put a dye on it to make it look like it's a strip of red on a crab, and they put artificial scent in it to make it smell like crab, and now everybody's just adapted to it. And so again, this is an indication of how we're accepting less and less and less. The turbot was considered a non-commercial fish, a trash fish as they used to call it, not to insult the poor thing, but that's what they called it. And nobody would think of fishing it. It is now the fish that you get on a restaurant menu in Paris, and of course the French, put all sorts of sauces on it, but it still has no taste in itself. All the taste has to be added to it. So we're adapting to getting those less commercial fish because we wiped out the cod, we wiped out all those other fish which were actually more attractive and more valuable. And anybody who's gone out to sea can see this damage. There are less dolphins, there are less seabirds, there are less whales. The diminishment has been incredible. When you look at the eastern coast of Canada and what it was like 500 years ago and what it's like now, but see, we see a lot of diversity because we don't see what it was like 500 years ago. The sea mink is extinct. The walrus, which used to live on the coast of Maine and also in Nova Scotia, extirpated in that area. It doesn't exist anymore. When Jacques Cartier first went to the New World in 1537, he described how the fish were so plentiful you could throw a basket in and pull out a codfish. The average codfish was about 1 meter to 1.5 meters in length. Now it's about 12 inches. And at that time, there were 45 million seals on the eastern coast of North America. 45 million seals, and now the Canadian government is saying the 4 to 5 million seals that are there are a threat to the fisheries. We have to remove the seals so that the fish can survive. How incredibly stupid. If you want fish, you need more seals. And I have to say, I was raised in a fishing village. I know fishermen. They're about one of the stupidest groups of people on the planet. And I don't care what anybody thinks. I've seen them throw garbage over the side, pump oil over the side, and justify every damn thing they do. But the one thing that they don't understand is how the ecology of the oceans works. If you want more fish, you need more seals. You need more whales. For instance, codfish. What is the biggest predator on cod in its natural situation before we came on the scene? That is other fish, mackerel, capelin, that eat the young cod as babies. When you lower harp seal populations, for example, you increase capelin mackerel populations because that is their primary food. Harp seals don't eat cod, they eat capelin and mackerel and other fish like that. So you increase those predatory fish, causing further predation on species like cod. All the Canadian government sees is 3 things: people, fish, and seals. That's all they see, 3 little blocks: people, fish, and seals. An overview of a simplified food chart of the Western North Atlantic will show 980 species interdependent with each other. You have to look on the whole situation in the context of all of those species. You can't look on them as just 3 little groups. And that's the kind of simplistic thinking that has got us in so much trouble. And I do not trust biologists who work for governments. I got a word for them. I call them biostitutes. In other words, the government hands them the results and they come up with the science to justify the political agenda. And this has gone on for far too long. And the proof of the pudding on that is the fact that the Canadian cod fishery collapsed in 1992, and right up until the day it collapsed, Canadian Department of Fisheries and Ocean scientists said it was perfectly healthy, and we didn't know what we were talking about when we predicted its imminent collapse. 2 years ago, we came into South Africa, and the Canadian government, we're under the Canadian flag, and the Canadian government changed the registry on me and said that we were now a commercial vessel. And when I pulled into South Africa, I was charged for operating a commercial vessel without a license. And I said, well, I'm a yacht. No, well, they just changed the registry. But I was at sea. How am I supposed to know this? Doesn't matter. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Came in, and they said, so this is a commercial vessel. I said, no, it is a yacht. And the guy in South Africa said, no, a yacht is a white vessel you sit on and have drinks with your friends, and this is not a yacht. I couldn't resist. I said, you think in post-apartheid South Africa would be room for a black yacht like ours.